Designing maps with ArcGIS. So far this semester we've been looking at ArcGIS, but we haven't actually made any maps with it. So in this module we'll look at how to effectively present the information that we've been working with so far in a map. The learning objectives are to understand and apply basic cartographic design principles, list elements that can be included on a map, create a map layout, create and modify a map legend, add and modify decorative map elements, convert feature labels to annotation, and apply a template to design a map layout. Working with map layouts, well-designed maps are easier for readers to interpret. So we spend a lot of time building data and analyzing data, but if we don't design a map well, we don't convey that information to the people who are using our maps. The reader should interpret the features and understand the message quickly with ease. Basic cartographic design principles allow you to make maps that are informative, useful, and easy to understand. So some of the concepts we'll be talking about relate to graphic design principles as well. Some of the main cartographic design principles are audience and purpose, size, scale, and media, and visual balance. You must consider your audience and purpose when making a map. Think about the difference between an expert and a novice and how they may interpret information on a map and what they may be looking for on a map. Experts and decision makers may need more information than a simple novice or casual user who may just be looking at a map to say find some locations of interest in a tourist town. So experts thrive for more information. Typically the information you make on a map that's for people who are experts in the subject area of the map are going to have more information and they're going to want to see more on a map. That's in contrast to novices that don't know much about the topic you're mapping, who will not need as much information, and the map will be more generalized. One example would be a map of fires, some fires in Arizona. Think about different groups of people who might use maps from who live in Arizona who might live near a fire. If you think about the firefighters, they're going to need real detailed maps that show them information on where all the roads are, where people live, where other structures are. The firefighters will need a lot of information on a map about a fire that they're fighting. They may even need things like prevalent winds, types of soils, types of forest, things that influence the fire. The local paper probably just wants less information that shows the main areas where the fire is. And people who live near the fire, evacuees, they're going to be most concerned with the roads, how to get out of the area where the fire is. So depending on your audience, your map will change. The information on the map will change. You really need to consider who you're making the map for. Typically a map will have one purpose. A map with more than one message will blur the map's message and confuse the audience. So you need to have a single purpose for a map, and you need to make different maps for different audiences. Don't make one map and try to push it out to all the different stakeholders who may be interested in information about that topic. Size and scale. The level of map detail depends on the map's size and the scale. Together, the size and the scale determine how much information can be effectively communicated on a map. Too much information can confuse and overwhelm, while too little may not convey the message. We talked about scale earlier this semester, and we said how small scale maps cover a large area and are less detailed, and large scale maps cover a smaller area and are more detailed. Understanding how the map will be used helps us determine the appropriate size and scale. Scale is determined by the size of the geographic area you're mapping and the size of the medium that you're mapping on. Sometimes you don't have much control over scale. If you only have an 8.5 by 11 printer and you know you need a printed map and you're mapping Buncombe County, the scale is dictated by the size of Buncombe County and the size of the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. You can't make Buncombe County any bigger than the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So scale is dictated by that size of the medium you're putting it on and the size of the area you're mapping. And sometimes you don't have much control because you're limited by your printer or the screen on a smartphone. Make sure to design for the final media. Symbols, symbol colors, the amount of detail shown, and the map size should reflect the viewing considerations for different media. There's lots of different ways that we show maps. Sometimes you print them, sometimes you email them and they're displayed on a computer monitor, sometimes they're projected on a wall, sometimes they are shown on a smartphone, a very small display. So you need to consider the final media when you develop your map. Colors look different printed than they look on a digital display. Make sure if someone's going to make black and white photocopies of your map that you design a black and white map. So a map created for a wall display will be different than a map designed to be displayed on a small digital screen, and there's many other examples of how different types of displays should be designed differently. Visual balance is an important thing to consider when you're making a map. You should focus the reader's attention on purpose first. Maps contain more information than the central theme, so elements are visually ranked by importance. All of the elements on a map work together as a composition. When you think about graphic communication, which is what we're doing with maps, we're communicating graphically, is different than other types of communication like spoken language or written language. With spoken language and written language, you get things in a very serial fashion, one word after the other. With graphic communication, you get all of the information at one time, and you have to sort it out. So you need to rank things by importance on a map. Arrangement affects the map's visual balance and the reader's perception of the information you're trying to communicate. Before printing or publishing a map, make sure it includes all of the relevant information your readers need to fully understand, arranged in a way that promotes that understanding. You should have other people critique your maps as well. We get so close to our maps and we understand what the maps are about because we're the ones making them that sometimes we don't understand when we aren't conveying it in a way that's easy to understand. Here are two examples, both of the countries associated with the Nile River. On the left, the central theme is unclear because the map elements are not arranged in any particular order. On the right, the map elements have been rearranged and the data extents shown in the two map frames have been adjusted to better convey the theme. So looking at these two, for an untrained eye, it's hard to tell the difference really. So it's real subtle. It takes practice and it takes experience as well as a critical eye. The theme of these maps are the countries around the Nile River. And sure, they both show the countries around the Nile River, but the one on the right shows it zoomed into the countries around the Nile River, where this one shows it way zoomed out with just a little box around those areas. They both show a locator map, but really it's the scale and extent, which is one of the big differences showing in these two maps. So again, it takes experience, it takes practice, it takes a critical eye, and there's very subtle differences, and that's why sometimes having someone look at it that doesn't know what you're mapping early on is useful. Maps have many elements, many beyond the map body or the actual area where you have your GIS data, your map data. Some of the main elements you'll see are legends, titles, some kind of indication of scale, a north arrow, inset maps, as well as many other elements. Some of the other elements you may see are things like sources of the data shown on the map. It may have map projection information so that people can better understand the accuracy of measurements that they make, the name of the map creator or organization, date of publication, informative text about the map subject or purpose, a graph, table, reports, neat lines, internal borders, images such as a company logo or an aerial photograph. So we have lots of information on a map, and all of these things compete for the reader's attention. So effectively organizing all of this information is important. This map is an example that shows a title, an inset map, source information, graph. It's got several legends and several map bodies, north arrows, scale bars, neat lines. This map, I usually like to point out, has 1 data frame, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different data frames within the map document that store different layers. Actually, some of these layers are the same, they're just symbolized differently. Working with the ArcGIS layout environment, in ArcMap, map elements are arranged on a virtual page called a layout. Layouts in ArcMap show the data frames from the table of contents, and a data frame in the ArcGIS world is equivalent to the cartographic term of map body. Layers displayed in the data frame can be controlled by turning them on and off or removing them from the table of contents. Map elements are inserted into the layout, so when you're in layout view, the insert drop-down is where you insert most all of your map elements. Each element has its own properties that can be personalized to suit your needs. And to start quickly, oftentimes we use an existing layout and then modify its properties and the elements it contains instead of starting from scratch and adding all new elements. Although in reality it's not real hard to add elements to a map layout. Creating a presentation map. Creating a map for presentation can take hours, days, and even weeks of careful work. Some of the maps I've published have taken hundreds of hours to create, literally. You are limited oftentimes by time and money. You could work on a map for presentation forever and never have every little thing fixed on it perfect. You can always tweak a map. So always consider your time and money that limits how much time you can put into it. Most of us are not artists or graphic designers, but we make lots of maps. Most of us are GIS people. We don't know a lot about graphic design. That's not necessarily our forte. GIS people have to be kind of jack of all trades. We need to know a lot about databases and building data and analyzing data as well as presenting the data. So graphic design is not what I'm best at, but I've gotten better at it by making lots of maps. ArcMap provides tools that will help you to reduce the time and effort spent creating maps while enhancing their effectiveness. Map templates are one way to help you get maps made faster and easier. Templates contain a fully designed layout and standard map elements. They provide a consistent look across maps. ArcGIS comes with many templates. You can also create your own templates. If you do create templates, be sure to store relative paths if your templates store data in them, and also store templates and any layer files or source data that the template references in the same location with meaningful names. Making maps more readable. Maps have a tremendous amount of information on them. Choices have to be made. You can't put every layer on every map. Oftentimes we have to make multiple maps to show information about one area. Things like layer transparency can be used so that symbology from multiple layers can be seen at once. It's easy just to cover up one layer with another layer when they're both polygon layers that cover the same area. So layer transparencies can be used to show more than one layer at once. And we also do things like create annotation by converting labels to annotation so that we can more precisely position text on the map. Another thing that makes maps more readable can be adding a reference system that helps readers easily locate features. Reference systems are part of the data frame properties. So if you go into the properties of a data frame, you can see where you can add reference systems. And there's three types. There's one called a graticule that's basically overlaying latitude and longitude on the map. There's a measured grid, which is overlaying a grid from a projected coordinate system. So the graticule is putting the geographic coordinate system on the map. The measured grid is putting a projected coordinate system on the map. And then you can have a reference grid that's a grid of lines that divide a map into a specified number of rows and columns, like A, B, C, D across the top and 1, 2, 3, 4 across the side. So you could look up a road based on it's in A1 or it's in C3, what quadrant of the map it's in. Graphic elements such as borders and images can also help a reader interpret your map. Borders can be used to visually group items, but make sure not to overuse borders. It will visually chop up your map. It's nice to not have too many neat lines and borders on a map. Text boxes can be used to draw attention to explanatory information added to the map. And an image like a company logo or an aerial photo can also add visual interest to your map. Organizing map elements in a layout. Take the time to organize, size, and arrange elements relative to one another into the map page. Be intentional and deliberate about how things are organized on your page. Don't just throw them on there willy-nilly or sloppy. You want things to be organized well. Your goal is a pleasing composition that allows readers to focus on the most important information the map is communicating, while also distinguishing supporting information that promotes understanding. ArcMap provides tools that make organizing and arranging map elements easy. Some of those things are rulers and guides that help you to snap your elements to line them up. There's also alignment and grouping tools, and these are all very helpful in organizing the elements on your map.